Hello everyone, welcome to the first video. This is going to be a 5-part series where I make a 4-course Italian meal. Today we're going to be making fresh pasta from scratch. Let's get started. Alright, we're going to start by combining our ingredients. The ingredient list is going to be 1 cup of flour per 1 egg, and then once you get a dough formed, you just add water until it gets the correct consistency. Add the flour. We're actually going to add about a pinch of salt to the flour. The recipe I'm using calls for a ½ teaspoon of salt. I would suggest ½ teaspoon to maybe a little bit less, mainly because when you're making pasta, you want the flavor to come from either the toppings, whether it be chicken or beef or meatballs, or the sauce, like spaghetti always has marinara sauce or the spaghetti sauce or an Alfredo sauce. That's where you're really getting the flavor from it. So we're gonna add the egg. I use large eggs for the most part. They're just more reliable for recipe's sake if you're looking at recipes. I always combine my pasta by hand. You can use a pasta machine or a dough hook. It just, when I get to the kneading process, I find that it's easier to have already done it by hand. Alright, mixing by hand, just go ahead and pop that yolk. It's gonna feel real weird. And always use clean hands. You're gonna feel the egg start to incorporate into the flour. Just kind of squeeze it every now and then, get that yolk popped, get that yolk all mixed in. You can do it a lightly beaten egg beforehand so you don't have to pop the yolk by hand if you're not into that. But otherwise, I'd say just go ahead and put it in, crack it in. You can also do it on a flat surface. I've done it before where you just make a well or like a little divot in the flour and crack the egg there, or pour the egg there, that is. So you're gonna start to get little lumps now. It's not gonna really become cohesive. More than likely, depending on the size of egg you use and the amount of flour you use, you're gonna probably wanna add some water. It tightens the dough up. As you can see, I've got this kind of loose dough chunks from the egg and the flour combined. Perfect, now we have water. A little bit of water at a time. Just enough for the dough to start coming together. And if it becomes too moist, just add a little more flour. I usually don't worry about it being too moist because you're gonna be kneading it on a flat floured surface. Once you start to feel a more solid mass start to form, you can start trying to press it together. It just makes it come together a little easier. Add water when you need to. Probably added a little too much there, but that's alright. Actually, no, that's coming together just about perfect, actually. Sometimes flouring your hand beforehand will actually help it kind of not stick to you so much, but it's not a big deal. But get all that flour and loose dough mixed and become a solid mass. You're gonna get a lot on your hands. I suggest flouring your hands beforehand if you're annoyed by stuff like that. I'm annoyed by stuff like that, so I probably should have planned better. It's alright though. So, now you've got a solid mass of dough. Not the prettiest thing you've ever seen, I'm sure, but it's alright. It's gonna be a little bit sticky, and once you get it on that floured surface, it'll work a lot better. So, now that we're getting it onto a flat surface, we're basically gonna just coat the entire thing and start to form a more traditional dough, one that you'll probably recognize if you've made cookies, bread, anything. It's very similar. It's not gonna turn out quite as similar as one of those doughs would be normally. Well, I'm really rambling. It's alright though, I'm doing stuff. Alright, so now we've got a fairly firm, complete dough. It's gonna, as you knead it, it's gonna become more uniform because that flour that you were mixing in before is gonna kind of break up and incorporate itself more evenly. It's also gonna become more smooth. That's really when you're starting to get a good pasta dough. It's gonna become less sticky on the outside simply because you're coating it in that flour. You're gonna start kind of folding it a little bit, not too much though, just kind of work it. Work it with your hands. And after this point, go ahead and hit it with a little more flour, not too much. You don't want to dry it out. And then you can either roll by hand, which is what I did for the first time I made pasta, or you can have a pasta roller, which if you've got a pasta roller, I'm sure you already know how to make pasta, so you can click off the video now. Have a great day. If you're new to making pasta though, and you don't have a pasta maker, I'm gonna do it by hand for you.
Maybe they have a pasta maker, but they've just never used it.
Maybe. We're keeping that in the video. That's valid. That's a valid point. That's editor. Alright, now that you've got your pasta all formed, I suggest washing your hands of everything else. Alright, so now that I've got my hands all dried off and clean and dough free, let's go. You're gonna see a couple little lumps in my dough, but it's no big deal. Once it starts cooking, it'll come right out. So at this point, if you've got a pasta maker, this is when you're putting it in. You're putting it in the pasta maker, cut it to whatever you need it to be, and then just go to about the second to the last thickness possible. By that I mean the second thinnest possible. That's for about where you want it for spaghetti. Fettuccine is definitely third to last or second to last, depending on how you like it. My hand, it's easier to work with that way. That makes it nice and easy to work with. Also easier to take off the table when you get it in noodle form. You can use a chef's knife or really any knife that makes it easy for you. I'm gonna use my little knife. Go ahead and hit it with just a little bit of flour, toss it around not too much because you don't want to break the noodles. If you see any wide ones like this one for instance, you can either stretch them out by hand or just go like that. This is a basil infused oil that I'm going to use. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of that to the water while it's boiling. Probably something around a teaspoon or so. That should be enough. Salt your water. Water's coming to a boil. We're gonna go ahead, fluff it up a bit, just so it's separated. I know they've sat here a little while together. You want to separate them a bit so that way they're not going crazy. Go ahead and toss it. It should only take about 3 or so minutes once we get it in there. Just kind of separate it as you drop it. That way it's separated. All right. So once you get it in there, it takes about 20 seconds and it's firm. When you boil it longer, you want to get it to about what people say is al dente. It's an Italian word. I'm not exactly sure what it means. It basically means cooked but a little firm. Flash not so. Al dente. Alright, so once your pasta's done, go ahead and take it off the heat and turn your burner off. We're going to go ahead and drain our pasta now. Dump it. When you're applying the sauce, it helps to apply it in the same pan. Or to save a little bit of your pasta water to add to the sauce. It just gives it a little bit more of a full flavor, the sauce that is, and it lets it cling to the pasta more. Alright guys, thank you for watching. It would be great if you'd subscribed and liked the video for me. Give me any comments you got. Give me some suggestions for future videos. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And thanks for watching.